Hey guys, what's up? So today I want to talk about something that I get asked about a lot, and that is how to choose a listing agent or how to choose someone to help you sell your house. Now, the considerations that you take in what's most likely one of the largest financial transactions of your life is important because you want to make sure that that agent is doing everything they can to sell your house. And there are some things as real estate agents we can control, and there's other things that we cannot control. And I want to talk about some of the factors that you should look for when you're choosing that listing agent. So stay tuned. Okay, so the first consideration is the agent's activity level, and that is how many homes have they sold. So this is an interesting one because obviously as agents get started, they could very well be very competent listing agents and be very capable of selling your house. They might be the best choice, but they just don't have the experience. And we all start somewhere. So even as I was getting started in my career, I did have to take listings, and obviously there was a first listing where I didn't have any activity. But while this shouldn't be your lone decision maker, this definitely should be a factor. At least it's one of the variables you should consider. And it should be very easy for that agent to tell you how many homes they've sold. So you can sometimes you can look this up on Zillow. I will say that's not always the most accurate way of looking up. Some agents just choose not to put their sales in Zillow. Me, for example, I look very forward to putting my sales in Zillow because I realize that's where a lot of people find me. So I want to make sure that Zillow page is up to date. But taking this into consideration as one of the very easy preliminary variables should be high on your list in welcoming a listing agent into your home. Okay, the second thing to consider is just your comfort level. You're going to be spending a lot of time with this person. In some cases, the home is sold very quickly, but even then, you still have a 60-day period, most likely, sometimes a little more, sometimes a little less, that you're going to be working with this person very closely. So you want to just make sure that you're comfortable with this agent. Do you feel at ease? Do you feel that the agent can explain things easily, is competent, is easy to be around? Because it will be a fairly intensive process, and you just want to make sure that you have someone that you don't dread calling or spending time with, because obviously that will make things very challenging. So a comfort level is very important with a listing agent. Okay, next is making sure that your agent understands your goals. So this sounds easy enough, but the listing presentation, when that agent comes to your house to talk about how they do business, is a very good time to test this out. And let them know what your goals are and just make sure that they're listening. Some agents, they could be nervous or they could just not be great listeners. And if you're dropping hints at what your motivations are and they are not picking up on them and commenting on them, it's probably a good indication that they may not be listening to your goals. Now, goals range. So for some people, it's that they need to sell their house to buy another one. It might be that they're totally flexible and they just want to get every dollar they can, and they're not so worried about selling it fast. And for some people, it's like, we have to sell this as fast as possible. And understanding those goals can make major shifts in your strategy for selling the home that the agent has available to them. Pricing, marketing, exclusive deals, there's all kinds of variables here. So making sure that the agent is listening to you and understands your goals is extremely important. Okay, number 4 is transparency. So along the way of selling a house in this market, or really any market, it's very important that you have an agent that's going to tell you the truth. And this ranges from day one when that agent walks into your house and takes a tour and says things like, oh, wow, this bathroom is fantastic. Well, that bathroom is from 1980 and it's not fantastic. And that's okay. It's okay for the agent to give you an honest assessment. This is a business transaction. And although there is a courtship here because they want your listing, you don't want them saying things that are concerning, that you want them to highlight concerns for you. That's part of the reason why they're touring your house, so that they can set pricing and set expectations. So you want to make sure that you have a transparent agent that's going to tell you how it is. I like to say to my clients that I'm going to tell you everything. I'm not going to sugarcoat everything. I'm going to say it with empathy, and we're going to strategize any challenges that come up. And I think that's extremely important. For most agents, it's not just important to close the transaction. It's important to develop a trust that you will say, man, this was a great experience and I definitely want to let my friends know, because that's how most agents keep in business. Now, all of us have a way that we get our business initially, but I think the ultimate goal of every agent is that We're your trusted realtor. We're the person that you call when you know someone that's going to buy or sell. You say, hey, you have to call Craig. You'll have a great experience. We had a great experience with him, and I think he'd be thrilled to help you out. And there's nothing more rewarding than getting referrals as a realtor. So if someone calls me that is, a long-time client, especially if they're an early client, someone from my first year, and they call me back and say, Craig, my neighbor's looking to sell, and I told them about you, and they're going to be giving you a call, that's fantastic. So that is very, very important with agents, to make sure that transparency equals trust, and that trust equals a long-term relationship. So that transparency is very important. Okay, now this is a big one for me, and that is marketing plan. So marketing plan is very important because I think it's something that a lot of agents talk about very generally. And what I would say to you is, if you are interviewing realtors, is that you challenge them on anything they say as far as marketing goes, because this is a very specific thing. So for example, my business, we utilize a lot of paid ads via Google and social media. And those paid ads are very targeted to find buyers that may not otherwise find your home. This is important out here in Hunterdon County because we have a lot of people moving out here that don't necessarily know a lot about Hunterdon County. They may not even know that your town exists. So we are trying to capture those people that may not have considered your home. Now, if it's a standard home in Hunterdon County, you're going to get a ton of people that are working with realtors or browsing Zillow or whatever it may be that will see your home. Sure, that's definitely true. But we are after the people that don't know that part. So ask your realtor, well, how would you get people that don't know about our home? We talk a lot about the 3P method of marketing, and this is not a good thing. But the 3P method of marketing is put it on the MLS, which is where all listing goes, multiple listing service, and that is where every listing goes, and that's how it gets sent to Zillow and Realtor and Trulia and everything else. So it all goes there. The second P is put a sign in the yard, and the third P is pray for offers. So you want to make sure that your realtor is not using the 3P method, because that really is not a value add. That is like the bare minimum. You want to find out what is it they do that assures you and guarantees you that it's going to get out in front of all the eyes possible, everyone that would possibly be interested in your home. It's very, very important. I will say that out here in Hunterdon, we have some areas that are a little more rural. So number one, they may not have heard of the town. Number two, they may not have ever considered living in a rural setting. But number three is, once they see what they can get for their money in a rural setting out here in Hunterdon, they may very well be interested. And I'm here to tell you, over the past several years, this is very much the case. People moving from out of the area because they love the house, they have a family, they love the school systems out here, and they want to get into the Hunterdon lifestyle. I think this is a pretty common commentary over the past, 40 years of Hunterdon County, is that, people discover Hunterdon County and then they move here. This goes for my parents. It goes for many of my friends' parents that are first generation Hunterdon County residents. Well, it's still happening, and people end up really loving it here. My own clients that have made this trek from outside of the area, New York, Eastern New Jersey, to Hunterdon County, are now established here. Great young families. It's new money. It's new ideas. And although this can be a polarizing subject locally, I assure you, in my experience, it's been nothing but a good thing. People are very appreciative of this area, and I think that will continue to be, especially once they set roots up. They don't want to do anything to harm the very reason that they got here. So how is your realtor going out and getting those types of leads that don't necessarily know that your house or your town exists? Now, in addition to, that's kind of the tech, social media marketing kind of thing, which is the newer wave, but then we also have the traditional stuff. So the traditional stuff really is, in social media, there is some traditional stuff, which is you're posting it to the local town pages and local groups that you may be a part of. You are putting it out to your own sphere via Facebook. So, us realtors are, very good with just letting people know that we're realtors and we have new listings. So you put it out to the people who are looking at that and saying, oh, you know what? I think this house would be perfect for my friend who's looking. So that's the traditional stuff. We do a little bit of door knocking. Door knocking is another polarizing subject, and there's some particulars there, which I'm happy to talk to you about. And then open houses, of course. Open houses are a big consideration and something that is helpful, especially in this market when you have a lot of buyers. It does a couple things. It cuts down on sporadic showings. Like if you're working from home or you have pets these days, it's very hard that first week that you put a listing up that you're just going to get constant visitors. So holding an open house can take away some of that pressure. But these are the traditional things that we do to market your home. And last but not least, does the agent potentially already have a buyer for you? This is what would be called an exclusive deal. And there's a specific way that we do this to make sure that all parties are happy. But this is essentially a deal within the office of the agent that's visiting you. So, for example, I work for Keller Williams in Clinton, New Jersey. If we have typically about 160 agents, all of those agents are working on listings and they all have buyers. So if we're waiting to get your listing ready for the greater market, we're doing certain things. We're working on staging and photos and everything else. In the meantime, if you are doing an exclusive deal, which is a separate thing that you'll sign and agree to, and of course you can always say no to any offer, but that gives me the ability to, before it hits the market, to go to my office, and we have an internal message board, and we say, hey guys, I got a new one coming up, 4 bedrooms in Clinton, being offered at $550,000. And if anyone is interested, let me know. We can probably get you in before it hits the MLS. Very common thing. And one of the advantages of working with one of the bigger brokerages in Hunterdon County is that you have access to more agents who have more buyers. So an exclusive deal is definitely something to consider. In certain areas, this is a huge piece of the market share. And we've definitely had good success doing this. I would say about 5 to 10% of my listings every year, or sales, on the buy side, are exclusive deals. So definitely something that's available to you. And with the bigger brokerages, you just have a little more of a array of agents who potentially have buyers for your home. Okay, so what is the agent offering? Is staging. So staging can range from high-end staging, tens of thousands of dollars, bringing in furniture, all sorts of different looks, and very modern and clean and, magazine quality type staging. Now, this is generally happens when the house isn't being lived in anymore. Generally a higher price point because you're going to have to spend some money here. Generally a very successful strategy, but again, it is a high price tag to do it. So it is a bit of a, I don't want to say risk necessarily, but it's definitely a decision that needs to be made that you're going to shell out the money to do a high-end staging. On the other end of the spectrum is basically just a consultation, which is going in with a staging consultant and doing a walk and talk and going from room to room and essentially getting an actionable list of things that need to be tidied up. Now, this is generally done in preparation for photography. So we're going to make sure that your house looks tip-top for when the photographer comes in. So a staging consultation or some form of staging consultation is very important. Okay, the next two are, in my opinion, should be deal breakers, and that is professional photography and potentially drone photography and video. So professional photography, for me, my opinion as an agent is this is non-negotiable. You really cannot sell a home without taking professional photos. Now, I come from a photography background. That's a whole nother story, but I was a professional photographer for a short time, including some real estate photography. And I don't care what anyone tells you. If you see an agent taking photos with their iPhone, no matter what iPhone they have and how current it is, it cannot compare to professional photography. I know some people have an opinion that it does. This is a very big subject discussed amongst realtors nationwide and statewide and office-wide, that there is a potential that you could just use your phone to do the photos. And I guess the argument would be for speed, or I'm not sure. I can tell you this, a professional photographer can be booked in a day or two's notice, come in there and be done in 45 minutes to an hour. So for me, speed is not a consideration, but it is crucial that you get professional photography done. The drone photography is something that's become very standard in the past few years. And I don't use this on 100% of my listings. For example, if you have a townhouse or condo, and let's just say the surrounding area is just, it's nothing wrong with it. It's just not necessarily something that you want to market. You might not necessarily choose to do drone photography in that situation. Sometimes we still will, because we want to show off the surrounding area if it's walkable to something that's interesting, like a town center or main street or shopping center, something that's appealing. Then yeah, we probably still will do drone photography for condos and townhouses. But the video that drones take is something that we'll use as part of our promo video, and that's not something that everyone does, but for us it's pretty crucial. So minimally professional photography, again, to me that's a deal breaker. If that's not on the table, then I think that may not be the right choice. And secondarily is at least have a conversation about drone photography and video. Okay, next is virtual tours. So virtual tours is something that I instituted as a requirement when COVID hit, because we didn't necessarily want everyone coming into the house. Now, I use a software called Matterport, which is extremely well known in real estate. And I'm sure most people watching this have done a Matterport tour, which is basically that you step inside the home virtually and you are clicking around the home. You can basically walk around the home and see every room and the layout and the flow of the house. I love this because it goes right to Zillow. I think primarily Zillow. I don't know that most of the other sites don't necessarily host virtual tours, but Zillow is definitely the one that gets the most traffic of all the sites that people use. And right on there will be your virtual tour. So before anyone has to come to your house, they can get a pretty good idea if the house will work for them. So it's going to kind of reduce those less serious buyers from actually showing up at your house. In this market, that's no small deal because there's so many people that want to come. So it'll just cut down on those showings that really aren't going to bear any fruit. So virtual tour to me is pretty crucial. And last but not least, kind of a minor one, because I don't think when I say this to anyone who's thinking about listing their home, but it's crucial on my side of the coin. And that is an app called ShowingTime. ShowingTime is the app that most realtors in this area, there are competing apps in other areas, but in this area, ShowingTime is the app that we use to schedule showings. So it's very simple. In a nutshell, basically what happens is you as the client will get a text message anytime a showing is requested, and you just reply back with a Y or an N. And that says, yes, that showing time is okay, or no, that showing time is not okay. I generally tell people, if you're going to write no, just let me know so I can tell the agent ahead of time, because that N can come off as cold when they just get a notification that the showing's declined. So you generally, if it's going to be a no, and we try to discourage no's, you want to show it as many times as possible. But if it's going to be a no, just let me know, and I'll contact the agent and say, oh, that's not a good time, but if you try this time, that might work. So showing time is important. The other nice thing about showing time is there's automatic feedback looped into it. So we're going to get feedback from our showings. And I will tell you right now that a lot of realtors don't provide feedback, and that's okay. I actually don't really hold realtors to that. Again, kind of another one of those polarizing subjects in real estate. But, if they're not interested and they haven't run comps and they're not from the area, I don't know how useful some of that feedback is. But you generally get feedback on a third to a half of your showings of people that either know me professionally and just want to provide some feedback for the sellers because it is very useful, or that they are considering the home and they have some objections. And for us as realtors, it's really important to pass that along to our sellers and let them know what some of the items that people might potentially be tripping up on as far as selling your house. Also, it gives us organization. We can tell who's been in the house and when. It makes sure that we've responded to all the requests. The alternative to this, especially in this market, let's say you have 50 people that want to come through your house at various times, is phone calls and text messages, which is impossible to track. And then I have to then call or text you as the client and say, is this time good? Showing time handles all of that. And it's, in my opinion, the easiest thing. I want to give you one other consideration with this is that, and there are some agents that don't like showing time. And generally, again, in my opinion, this is more of a discomfort with tech in general when agents choose not to use it. But there's a very important consideration here is on any given Saturday, agents are taking their clients out to look at various homes that they're considering buying. So on a given Saturday, if I'm working with buyers, I might take them to see 5 homes. When I go to book the showings on those 5 homes, 4 of them have showing time and 1 doesn't. Well, that one causes a real problem because the way we set up those showings is all through the app. And it's just like you going on Amazon and going shopping, is you're going to fill up your shopping cart with your showings. The app is actually going to give you a suggested route and timing on those showings. And then it's going to, you line them all up how you want, and then you hit one button and off the requests go to all of the respective agents that have that listing to ask their clients if that showing time is good, except for that one. Now I have to separately plug it somewhere into my tour. I have to separately text and call that agent, and then that agent has to separately call or text their client and get back to me. This can be a real problem when you're scheduling a lot of showings. And I can't stress this enough. A lot of agents really overlook this because they're less active. So they're not used to some of these considerations, like showing their clients 5 houses in a day. If they're not super active, they might not think it's a big deal. Well, what's the big deal? I can respond to those requests. Well, it is a big deal for the other agents. So it can be a problem because sometimes it just doesn't work out and you might miss out on those opportunities. So this is a little bit of a niche thing for agents to get irritated by when they're not using showing time, but it is important for the client to understand that that should probably be used on your listing. Okay, the next consideration for a listing agent is just a real general one, and that's professionalism. This one's interesting because I think when I started my career, I really hung my hat on my professionalism because I just didn't have much experience. But professionalism as a real estate agent is very important because your agent is going to be interacting with a lot of different agents. There's going to be negotiation. There's going to be back and forth text messaging and phone calls and considerations and vetting of offers. Are you confident that, number one, your agent is just organized enough to take all of that in and process it correctly and get it over to you? Number two, are they responsive to other agents that are literally trying to buy the house? And number three, what is their reputation like amongst other agents? Are other agents looking forward to working with them, or are other agents dreading working with them? And those can all be variables. Now, listen, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I wouldn't have my buyers buy a house from an agent that I don't think is a great agent because, we have a fiduciary responsibility to our clients first. And if that's the house they want, then that's the house we're going to try and get. But I generally will even just say to my clients, like, hey, I've worked with this agent before and they can be a bit challenging. So bear with me a little bit here. That's not an ideal situation if you're listing your home and that's your agent. So professionalism in general, and you can usually pick up on this pretty simply at the listing presentation. And professionalism to me doesn't mean that the agent's going to show up in a suit. It means that in your responses, look for follow through. Give them some homework. If you tell the agent, hey, get back to me on a price for the house. If they get back to you with a nice formal email with a attachment with your marketing analysis of the house, and they get back to you right quick. If they call you that next day and say, hey, just wanted to follow up and see if you had any follow-up questions, it's a good chance you have a pretty professional agent there. If you're having trouble getting in touch with them at that point, that's the easy part. So if it's trouble in the beginning, it's probably going to be trouble down the road. So just keep an eye on professionalism with your agent. All right, and last but not least, just a couple frequently asked questions that I get. I'm just going to touch on these because these can become a whole new discussion point. But a couple things that I get asked about a lot is my pricing strategy. So me personally, and again, this is my strategy, and I'm not saying my strategy is necessarily better or worse than anyone else's. I'm just going to tell you that I like to do a fair market value when I'm setting my pricing. So it's very important that you do your homework. You get the comps. You should be able to see those comps from the agent that's pitching to you to be your listing agent. and understand the market at hand. Is the market like currently is a seller's market, and sometimes it's a buyer's market, so that has to be considered too. Those comps, generally, we try to keep them within a year and ideally within 6 months. So within 6 months, obviously, not obviously, but that's potentially going to be current market conditions. Whereas if you start going to a year, market could change a little bit. If you go past a year, the market's going to be pretty different, which is why we try and keep it under a year for comparatives. But I always tell people that I want to list it at fair market value. So this isn't appraised value. This isn't replacement value. This is the value that I think that you'll hit. If you list your house within 30 days, it will sell at this price. So that is based on the comps, that is based on the market, that is based on the neighborhood, it is based on all of the tangible things that we can get our hands on. And generally speaking, this is my strategy. Now, there are exceptions to this. I like to tell people I'm not going to lose your listing over price. So if someone gives you a better price, my first question is, could they justify that price? Because I've provided you with justification for my price. If they gave you a higher price without justification, I'm immediately suspect. However, if you want to take a shot at that price, that's fine with me. What I generally will recommend is let's do your price for 30 days. In this market, if you haven't gotten a bite at 30 days, you're not getting a bite on that price. So after 30 days, we'll go from your price to my price or somewhere in between. Because, it's silly to lose a listing over pricing. I'm giving you a recommendation on strategy, but that doesn't necessarily mean that, we have to go that route. And if that's the only difference between me and another realtor is the price that I'm presenting to you, then certainly that shouldn't be the factor that makes you choose, because you can just say, Craig, hey, I hear what you're saying, but let's take a shot with another 50 grand on top of that price. That's fine. That's totally fine. So, this comes around goals and expectations and timelines and everything else. That's all should be factored into pricing. But in this market, I think every agent will tell you that we are, very often surprised by what we see the outcomes being of listings and what the prices are. Sometimes they're above. Sometimes we think we're pricing perfectly and just no one bites. It's tough. It's especially tough in this market. This market's very unpredictable. So pricing strategy is a thing. So I will give you a recommended price. But if someone else told you that they could get you another 50 grand and you want to give that a shot, I'm certainly not going to lose the listing over that. So that's generally a strategic discussion and something that I'm always open to. And last but not least is commission structure. So this is a conversation I'm not going to tell my commission on this video, but it's definitely a discussion we will have at your listing presentation. Commission is a pretty cut and dry conversation in my opinion, whereas I don't think it necessarily is with other agents. So I will tell you what my commission structure is, and I will tell you how I arrive at that number. And I think once we have that conversation, you should be pretty comfortable with what I charge and how I justify that charge. But I will say this, that there's a huge spectrum here. So some agents are coming in at very low commissions, and some agents come in at very high commissions. I'm somewhere in between. Very low commissions, just be careful, because if you're dealing with someone who is taking very low commissions, there's a few questions here. Number one is if they have trouble negotiating their own rate, their own pay for doing their job, how well are they going to negotiate on your behalf when they are selling your home? That has to be a question, in my opinion. Number two, are they giving themselves enough of a buffer to have a budget for all the things that I just said that I offer? The professional photography, the drone. Are they going to charge you for those things? That could be a consideration too. What kind of service are they going to provide if they're not charging as much? If they're charging less, there has to be some sort of compromise. Are they dealing in volume? So they'll be difficult to get a hold of. A lot of agents that deal in large volumes are able to charge lower commissions because they deal in volume. But that might not be a great experience for you. So that commission conversation is very important. Again, I'm not going to get into my commissions on this video, but I guarantee you if you have a listing presentation with me, we can have a very deliberate discussion about my commission structure. All right, so that's about it for today. So that's a very general overview of what you should look for in a listing agent or someone who's going to help you sell your home. And I hope this was helpful. This is meant to be very general. This is not at all encompassing, and I guarantee if you have a listing presentation with me, you will get a much more extensive set of information presented to you so that you can make a very easy decision. So if you need me at all, if you like what you saw and you said, Craig, let's talk more and we need to sell our house, please just you'll see my website in the details below in the video. You can call me, email me, text me, whatever is easiest for you. There is actually a link below to schedule a buyer's consultation. That can just as easily be a listing consultation. It's basically just booking a 30-minute phone call with me. You can do it that way too. That's very easy. That is synced up to my calendar. And if you're looking anywhere in the country, I collaborate with agents from all over the country. This is a huge part of real estate that I think a lot of people don't realize, but I have people everywhere. So if you're seeing this video and you're like, oh man, I'd like to work with Craig, but I'm not in New Jersey, give me a call anyway. I would be happy to set you up with a high performing and fantastic agent that I collaborate with nationally. We mastermind with agents from all over the country. So yeah, I hope you're doing well. I hope this was helpful, and take care.